Well, folks, here at the Voice of College Football, metaphorically appropriate development. Tim Prangley's had some internet issues. He's resetting his internet. He'll be on here in 3 or 4 minutes to take your calls at 888 Riley. And well, we don't like saying Riley right now here at Trojans Wire and the Voice of College Football, but that's 888 Tim will be taking your calls when he jumps on here in a few minutes. Well, now that was a game. That was one of the games that USC has played this season. It was the worst game. It was the worst game of Caleb Williams' career. It was the worst game of this USC offensive line's season. It was the worst game these wide receivers have played. I mean, they were bad against Arizona, but they were even worse against Notre Dame. And so what do we make of this? I mean, the idea that Notre Dame would win, not hugely surprising at all. I mean, Notre Dame was favored by 2.5 points, but the way this went down, the way this happened, obviously a huge surprise. Caleb Williams with 3 first-half interceptions. I mean, Caleb Williams lost this game for USC, point blank. Weren't expecting it, but, if something's unexpected, you still have to be able to admit it when it happens. And speaking of things you have to admit, not that anyone at USC likes admitting this, but you know what? When bad things happen and you are confronted with really inconvenient, really negative, really uncomfortable, harsh truths, you can either run from those truths like a coward, or you can face those truths like a man. And at USC, Lincoln Riley has to face the truth. Oklahoma fans were right. Everything that Oklahoma fans have been saying about what was going to happen under Lincoln Riley at USC without Bill Biedenbaugh as his offensive line coach, without Jerry Schmidt as his strength coach, and with Benny Wiley, his buddy, in as strength coach at USC. They said this was going to go downward, and they have been proven correct. Again, do I like admitting this? Do I like saying this? Heck no. I'm the editor of a USC sports website. I would like to be in the college football playoff. I would at least like to be in the college football playoff conversation in mid to late November. USC's probably not going to be there. We're probably going to be covering the Holiday Bowl. Again, do I like this? Do I enjoy saying this? Not at all. Not one bit. But this is where USC is headed. I mean, that's just the uncomfortable reality. Like, do you want me to be a Clay Helton style sunshine pumper right now? I don't think so. I think at USC fans are pretty good at facing the truth, facing facts. And right now, the fact is that the Oklahoma fans and their critique, their read on Lincoln Riley, boy, it has just been proven right at every point. I mean, not last year. Last year, Lincoln Riley did a really good job. But this year, as things have gone along, every Oklahoma fan criticism has been on the mark. Strength training, in terms of Benny Wiley, like we have to look at that at USC. This is a soft team, and we've seen regression. And I think that's what caught me off guard. That's what I wasn't expecting. I was not expecting this offense to regress because I wasn't expecting the offensive line to regress. I wasn't expecting the receivers to regress, but we have seen regression. We saw a ton of it against Arizona, and then we saw a lot of it against Notre Dame. And of course, the first 6 games on the schedule didn't seem very threatening, and USC did go through them 6-0, but this was the unofficial start of the season, right? Notre Dame, Saturday, primetime, NBC, everyone in the nation watching college football's greatest intersectional rivalry against Notre Dame. So this was the time for USC to man up. This was the time to make a statement, to plant the feet, to make a stand, to show what the Trojans were made of. Like, this was it, right? We all acknowledged, we all knew it. This was supposed to be the time for USC to show up, and the Trojans no-showed. Offensive line, receivers, Caleb Williams, soft. Got kicked in the teeth by Notre Dame's defensive line, and to our friends Will N.D. and D-Rock Irish, the people who root for Notre Dame and come here are very respectful. here at the Voice of College Football. Congratulations. But you kicked the snot out of USC. Notre Dame D-line just owned the USC offensive line. And Tim Prangley, he's setting up shop, so he's going to be about to take your calls. Before Tim comes on, let's just say it. Let's just say it, all right? Why is this offense not as good as 2022? Jordan Addison. We have to realize how much Jordan Addison did for that wide receiver group with his speed, with his route running, with his professionalism. Dorian Singer was supposed to be the Addison replacement. Nope. Total bust. Total bust. We need to appreciate what Addison brought to the table. Travis Dye, his versatility on the field, but also his leadership in that locker room. Man, that is really missing for USC this season. That's another reason this offense has gone downward. And then on the offensive line, Andrew Voorhees, Brett Nealon, their contributions, their toughness. Also, Bobby Haskins, don't want to forget him either. And that was a really great portal pickup. Bobby Haskins from Virginia. Those guys, Voorhees number 1, Nealon a close second, number 2, and also Bobby Haskins. Those were warriors on the offensive line. And you don't yet have those guys stepping up this year. Justin Dedich, not playing as well this year as last year. I don't think anyone would question that. So you had some special people, you had some special warriors, competitors throughout the offensive roster last year. You had Addison with elite speed and technique. And what's on the roster this year, it's not matching up at any of the position groups. Now, Caleb needs the receivers to get open, and he needs his offensive line to protect him. Now, he made some bad throws. They were unquestionably bad throws. Like, he should have been able to complete that pass to Lake McCree, the first interception. Guys were on him right away. No need for him to float that ball. Like, he way overshot that pass. But still, you got to complete that ball. But that having been said, in a larger context, Notre Dame's defensive line was all over Caleb, and this offensive line got its butt kicked. Last year against the Irish, that offensive line with Voorhees, playing through pain, he then wasn't able to play in the Pac-12 title game. Last year, the offensive line stood up to Notre Dame's D-line, but this year, not so. And we've just seen regression throughout the offense, and we can see that the pieces of the roster, they aren't this year what they were last year. That's what we need to own up to and admit here at the Voice of College Football. So Tim Prangley has joined us after his internet issues, very metaphorically appropriate after that train derailment Saturday night in South Bend. So Tim's here to take calls, and I'm sure Tim has an opening statement or two to make. Hi, Tim.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I was really sorry, guys. Life happens, right? I had I think I'm still having some problems, but I think I've got them cleared up right now. Really quickly, this is 2 straight games where Caleb Williams, last year's Heisman Trophy winner, was unable to pass for more than 205 yards in a game. He was held under 200 yards in this game, 205 last game. One thing we can know is it's not Caleb. Okay. Caleb, obviously, there's some of the chinks in his armor, which is kind of silly. It's almost like saying, that Superman has a couple of flaws to him, but they are there. And I think more on the offense as a whole than it is on Caleb himself. I think, Matt, I was catching some of what you're saying as far as it being a situation where it's all over the place. I think even Riley attested to the fact that it's all over the place. It's certain spots, right? It's one guy's doing this if the running backs are missing a hole, or the line is having an issue blocking, or they're having trouble protecting him, or Caleb's been doing a bad read, or he's making a bad call. All these things are coming, and they're coming at inopportune times. When you're on the road in North Dakota, I'm sorry, North Dakota. Excuse me.
While Tim fixes his issues, people are talking a lot about Cliff Kingsbury. Well, whatever he's doing, it's not bringing anything new or important or valuable to the table. And that is a bit of a head scratcher, that you have more of a knowledge base, another voice in the room. This was supposed to be important and valuable, and we're not seeing it. And so people are now going to say when Cliff Kingsbury applies for either a coordinator or head coaching job next year, next cycle, they're going to say, hey, what exactly went on with Caleb Williams? He didn't exactly play better, and your offense wasn't exactly better. And what the heck's going on there? So the Cliff Kingsbury career arc continues to go downward. Like, that's another plot point we weren't expecting this year at USC. So that's just another mystifying element of all this, that you're not seeing player development. Like, and this is the thing. At Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley developed players. I mean, it's not just the Heisman trophies and the guys he sent to the NFL, but think of what he did with Jalen Hurts, for instance. Like, Jalen Hurts came to Oklahoma for that 2019 season, and people were unsure of exactly what he was capable of. And Riley turned Hurts into more of a running quarterback. Like, that gave him a foundation to be the dual threat force he's been with the Eagles. Like, Riley did some excellent player development with Jalen Hurts, prepared him for the NFL, gave the Eagles, a chance to see what Hurts was capable of if you surrounded him with a quality offensive line. Remember, Hurts was picked 53rd, I believe. Riley really developed him. Like, he can develop players. You saw how well Travis Dye and Jordan Addison were utilized last year within the framework of the offense, and how receivers got open and Riley was scheming guys open, and as well as Caleb throwing guys open. There was a lot of good player development taking place last year on the USC offense, and that's come to a halt. And maybe this all starts with the offensive line just not being able to set the table for everyone else. That's certainly part of it, but you're not seeing Riley scheme guys open the way he did last year. And maybe this is just a lot of opposing defensive coordinators having an off season to really look at what he does within the context of USC as opposed to Oklahoma, and not having guys being able to dominate physically in the trenches. Maybe that's, what's turned this into a house of cards right now. But Riley's historically has had better results scheming players open and being able to develop offensive players. Now, defense is its own thing, but he's had a good track record in offensive player development. We're not seeing that this year, and it's really, really fascinating to watch as Tim comes back on, tries to get things sorted. The other thing that we have to keep in mind in all of this is that USC just whiffed in the portal. Like, USC hit home runs in the portal for 2022. We talk about Travis Dye, we talk about Jordan Addison, talk about Bobby Haskins. Like, those were all great portal pickups. They were all central to the development of the offense. You compare that to this year. Marshawn Lloyd from South Carolina, like, that's a really solid portal acquisition, no doubt. But Dorian Singer, that's a whiff, strike one. And Michael Tarquin from Florida in the portal, whiff. He made some crucial mistakes last night. Emmanuel Pregnon, huge holding penalty. Jarrett Kingston from Washington State. The portal acquisitions have not delivered for the most part for USC. And so that is really the other side of the coin, right, folks? That the portal can instantly refresh your roster. Like, Lincoln Riley was able to inherit the Clay Helton mess, and then he gets all these great portal pickups for 2022, and you get 11 wins out of it. That's the good side of the portal. You can instantly boost what was a barren roster or a roster with a lot of holes. But the flip side of the portal is that if you miss on your mainline acquisitions, especially on your offensive front, as it appears USC has done, then you have a weaker overall unit. And this is a weaker overall unit. And I wasn't expecting to say that through week 7, but it's clear. Like, this offensive unit and this offensive line, they are not setting the bar as high as last year's group did. And so the portal pickups have to be better. And of course, with the portal being a wild card of sorts, the recruiting has to be better. But, and here's the problem. We talked before the season that the recruiting was going to be better if the program won, if the team won, took care of business, achieved at a high level. When you look at a game like this, our recruit's going to say, "Oh, I gotta go to USC where Lincoln Riley has that program not on an upward trajectory, but kind of treading water, maybe even taking on water." This is serious, and a lot of offseason changes need to be made by Lincoln Riley. So, Tim, back
all right,
in
Matt.
the
I think my son finally fixed the phone, so I believe the phone is working. We're up and ready to go. Let's cross our fingers because all morning
such an appropriate metaphor for this weekend for USC football.
Yeah, thanks for covering that for me. But basically, just the short end I was trying to finish up was the fact is that there's an issue all over this offense. It was so nice before because the fans were saying, "Look, we'll just fire Grinch and we're going to the playoffs," right? It's now kind of showing that maybe it's not just a defensive issue. And again, I will go into it, but there's a lot of ways the defense showed up last night. And quite frankly, except for the first quarter against Arizona, the defense has played pretty solid since then. So they played 1 3/4 football where we're seeing the tackling improving. We're seeing the run fits get better. We're seeing coverage a lot better. And Christian Rowan Wallace, I said it last night on the post-game show, the guy had a game. The guy did exactly what we wanted him to do to take care of Evans, pretty much isolating him the whole game and knocking him down. That's what you want to see from the defense. The problem now is the quarterback and Caleb Williams, and then forcing him to be more of a traditional quarterback, not letting him get outside, not letting him create, keep him in the pocket, making him make on-schedule throws. I've said this for 2 weeks now. The fact is, it seems like everything's a scramble drill, and nobody's getting open. You brought the point about separation, missing Dorian Singer. I mean, missing Addison. Dorian Singer appears to have some drops. Bryce had some drops. It was like the drops last night. Even when we were getting balls to them, the receivers were dropping the ball. Lots of issues. I'm hoping there are a lot of phone calls coming in, you guys. So the number is 888-977-4539, 888-99-RILEY if you want to get in here. Let me make sure that we actually have the phone lines up and on, but I do believe they are. Yep. So go ahead and give us a call, you guys. What do you guys want to talk about? There are a lot of issues in the Trojan family. This is for Trojan Family Therapy. Feel free to call in. Let us know what you think and where you want to go from here. Matt, one concern. So we talked about the offensive line. What were your thoughts on the offensive line specifically? Like, what are you seeing? I mean, last night on the post-game show, I brought up things from going from having Dedich having snapping issues all the way to the right side, missing assignments. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I mean, is there anyone who looks, really dominant at his position, right? Can you really say that? I mean, Jonah Monheim is probably the best offensive lineman USC has, and one of the things that we talk about when we evaluate offensive linemen, if their name isn't getting mentioned, that's good. They're not getting beaten, they're not making a mistake, they're not getting smoked. So like Monheim made the fewest mistakes, but by the same token, like Notre Dame was just getting a push. Notre Dame was moving the line of scrimmage toward Caleb Williams, toward the running backs all night long, including on that fourth down. Like you need to have at least you need to have at least 3 of your 5 offensive linemen being really strong anchors at their positions. Because if a blitz or a stunt or a twist comes from another angle, maybe the fact that 3 linemen are winning their battles can compensate sometimes, not always, sometimes, for the other 2 guys not doing their job as well as possible. But like, this is a wholesale problem. Like, it isn't just one matchup. It isn't just one guy. The line as a whole, like you compare this line to what you had last year with Voorhees and Nealon and Haskins, in terms of a full unit, just the standard is way down. And, Tim, I don't know if you caught me while you were trying to fix your internet and then fix the phone line, but, USC it now has to have a chat about Josh Henson. I'm not saying that he's not up to it, but he has not done the job this year. He did a really good job last year with what was supposed to be less depth than what he had this year. Josh Henson now becomes a focus in terms of this line really has to be able to get it up for Utah, and it has to be decent against Washington and Oregon. Josh Henson now has to answer questions about whether he's the right guy as the offensive line coach for USC.
Apparently people are saying the phone line still isn't working, which I just tested it and it works. So if you guys call in, it should be able to reach us. I know I had a blind spot for this offensive line. Maybe it's because I just wanted to believe that we'd be able to replace guys like Voorhees and a starter, a multi-year starter in Nealon, who just really did a great job. I mean, I don't think that we really appreciated how much, and we know it though. I mean, if you follow football, you know how important that center position is. Calling out the protections, doing all kinds of things that would help out Caleb and the line for a number of things. But where we're also seeing issues is, Jude Wolfe absolutely whiffed on an important block on 4th down, stalling that drive inside the 20-yard line, I believe. And then we're still seeing this shuffling going on at right tackle. They can't decide if it's going to be, which are they with Mason Murphy, who you've seen come in and play well at times, kind of like a shuffling, or are they going to stay with Michael Tarquin, the transfer from Florida? Okay, we got a call. Hold on a second. Hello, thank you for calling Voice College Football. You're on with Matt and Tim. What's your name? Where are you from? Oh, maybe not. Maybe we haven't figured it out. Well, then we go to plan B, I guess. The best plan B is going to be to go to the StreamYard. So I'll put the link for the StreamYard in right now if you guys want to join us, and I'll try to continue to work on the phones. Not sure exactly what's happening here, but the link for the show is now in the chat. Go ahead and join us and give us your thoughts. Again, I think this is really a systemic problem that our issue is going everywhere, but really it's all exacerbated by the two things. One, I'd like to see Caleb step up into the pocket and make a throw on time, and then, like you said, we need to get the receivers. They have to get open. If you can get those two things, I think that solves. I think we still have a lot better game than we did last night. But really, are there passing lanes? That's the third thing now with this offensive line. Are they providing those passing lanes? We saw a bunch of balls, Matt, batted down the line as well. So just constantly, you're seeing issues that all stem from an offensive line. Avery, thanks for being so patient. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
What's up? How you doing today?
Avery, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, you didn't want me to talk. I think something was wrong with the other phone line.
Yeah,
You didn't want
Avery?
to talk to me today. What's up? How you guys doing today? What's up, Matt? Matt, you're my guy. How y'all doing today,
Matt,
man?
can you hear Avery?
Yes. Go. I'll relay Avery's question, Tim, if you can't hear him. Avery, go ahead.
What's up? What's up? So for starters, yeah, I'm pretty disappointed with what we saw yesterday. But the first thing that's probably a question, we didn't take a walkthrough because the hotel was too far from the stadium. What kind of nonsense is that? This isn't Oklahoma going to play Baylor or Oklahoma going to play TCU. This is one of the biggest games within the organization, within the program. You get the kids on ground level, let them let their hair down, let them take in the sights and sounds, and then get ready to come and play football. I definitely agree with you on the thought process that we whiffed on these transfer portal guys, but that's the coach's job to scout and make the best decisions. So
Yes.
make that make sense. So you selected three guys that you brought in that you didn't make a good decision on, and now in week 7 you don't realize that they're not good. Well, maybe we got the wrong coaching staff then. Like, that's not a good look. And I know I keep pounding this. I keep saying this week in and week out. Why does Keon Bars not play next to Bear Alexander? Why? You can't convince me that number 47 and number 31 are significant upgrades to Kai Bars. If that be the case, he should have stayed at Arizona. He shouldn't have came here. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm what are we doing in practice? It seems like we're back to the Clay Helton, Lane Kiffin days in practice. We don't want to hit too tough because we don't want to get guys injured, and it's translating to to what we see on the field. It's not a good look. You can't be 7 weeks into the season and tell me that we don't have a good offensive line. You knew that during inter squad scrimmages. You knew that during practicing. You knew that during drills. So as a result of you knowing that, you get paid millions of dollars to come up with philosophies and thought processes to overcompensate where we're weak at. That's your job. Like, make that make sense. Am I the only one that thinks that the offense identity isn't there? You brought Marshawn Lloyd here, not to feed him the rock. I don't care how good the offensive line isn't. Figure out other ways to get him the ball. Hey, you remember at one point in time we had Javoris, Buck Allen, and we did things like screen to death. Remember, we used to give him the ball all the time in screens. Well, hey, you might need to do that for Lloyd until the offensive line forms some type of cohesion and some type of continuity. Like,
let me step in. Let me step in right there, Avery. I mean, Lincoln Riley ran the ball more in this game. More specifically, he ran the ball more on 1st and 10 than he had been doing it in previous games. Like, you were not just seeing pass, 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down. So like he tried to work this game more the way the fans had been wanting. But if your offensive line is getting blown up and punched in the mouth, that doesn't matter. And to address your specific and very thoughtful point about Marshawn Lloyd getting the ball to him in different ways, let's just admit Travis Dye was a more versatile kind of Swiss Army knife type player who could be utilized in a lot of different ways. Lloyd is a little bit more of a bruiser than Dye. I mean, Dye got tough yards last year, but you could also use him in space on the perimeter. Harder to deploy Marshawn Lloyd like that. Let's also keep in mind, Raleek Brown. Like, that was supposed to be the dynamic Darren Sproles type piece of all of this, and that just went poof. So, like, player development. I mean, not picking the right transfers, like, the coaches need to be better about that. But even if with the players you have, maybe they're not as good as last year's group, and it doesn't seem as though they are. But even if they're not as good, well, you're supposed to develop them. You're supposed to improve them. We're not seeing any improvement at all. This thing is regressing each week. Especially since like the 3rd quarter of the Colorado game, this offense has fallen off a cliff. So where is the player development? That really is the most surprising piece of all this.
And I don't know if anybody saw this the first week when Zion Branch returned that kick against San Jose State. It seemed like it was a weight lifted off the team's shoulders. It was kind of like, thanks, we appreciate you because we really didn't want to come out here and have the battle. And Lord and behold, that ended up being like the thought philosophy throughout the rest of the season. It's like we need him to get us out of trouble. Like, he's the Batman, or he's the guy that's gonna switch it on for us. And that's a 18-year-old kid that just entered the program. Like, that can't be the thought process. Like, how have we taken such a significant step back? I tell you guys all the time, my very first Trojan game was last year on the road at Tucson, and all I was thinking was like, man, if we get better players, we really can be good.
I want to find out, Avery. So a long time ago, and I went head to head and bat to bat with a guy, I don't know who it was, bless them, or someone was talking about the offensive line. I think I pissed them off. They're not here in our community anymore. But that dude, wherever he is, wherever you are, if you guys know who he is, tell him I said he was 100% right. He called it way back in game 1, which I'm like, no, they're just mixing and matching guys here, blah, blah. And he was like, no, there's something wrong there. And I was kind of lulled into this thing because they were like swapping people in and out. And last night I talked about it. I said, look, they're just trying these warm-up games, are treating them like an exhibition, and they're just trying to, find the right fit, find the right unit, the best 5, etc. When in reality, they didn't have the opportunity to do that. I'm gonna give them a break on this because guys like Tarquin and Prangley weren't there for spring ball, right? But you would have thought in fall camp and leading up to the games that they would have figured out. But that was a mix and match ongoing all the way through game 3. And then now for the last couple of games, you've been seeing the turnstile at right tackle with Tarquin. It looks like they want to go with Tarquin. For some reason, Tarquin just, for whatever reason, is having difficulty with issues. Like the word was that I listened to the radio broadcast. I'm that much of a nerd after last night going to sleep. And they were talking about there had been some issues at practice that they were seeing in the games. And that's when he gets yanked. I'm just going off of what I've heard. But there is a reason. You don't play musical chairs with your right tackle. Usually you'll see, a second line come in or whatever. But you don't see one guy specifically musically chairs going back and forth like that, like we've seen the last couple of games. I don't know. You guys both have a lot of football knowledge. Here's what I'm saying. It looks like this is all starting and stopping with the offensive line. The one thing that I'm seeing, I get, Matt, you make a solid point with Addison. I totally agree with that. That's also, but I think that would be absolutely mitigate. That's exacerbating the problem that we have at offensive line, because Caleb doesn't look comfortable. We know what Caleb can do with that line last year, just lights out the entire world. No one's figured out Riley. Riley hasn't always had Caleb Williams as his quarterback. I think people are putting way too much in that. Plus the fact that Cliff Kingsbury, he's also this. So you got two really good offensive minds working together, trying to figure this thing out. And it may just come down to what we saw at the beginning of this year with them shuffling all those offensive linemen around is they knew the problem. That problem was going to be on offensive line, and they still haven't figured it out. And I think that's what we're seeing right now.
All right, Avery, thanks. We have a lot of people in the queue that want to talk to us.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Hey, man,
Fight
I
on,
appreciate
Avery.
you because you keep it real with me, buddy. So, hey, good to talk to you again, Tim. And, hey, fight on, guys.
Fight on. All right, I believe next up is Russ Campbell. Russ, how you doing?
Good, guys. How you guys doing?
Been better, but, we'll get through it, right?
Yeah. So I'd like to, I called in last night. I actually followed Avery last night as well. So this is like deja vu again with a little more of a clear mind. But I think we need to have a conversation about expectations and reality. And I think last year we didn't play a super easy schedule, but wasn't a hard schedule either. And we kind of assumed because, we went 11-1 in the regular season, and then, we got injured for the second Utah game, and the Tulane game was a, blah, blah, blah. Caleb Williams and our middling schedule last year really masked a lot of inequalities I won't say inequalities, but just we're not as good as we thought we were. We're not as far along as we thought we were. We are not as far away from the Clay Helton era that we thought we were. And we need to understand, I gotta call it. Yeah. So we just need to understand that, like, programs that were sort of wandering in the desert for 10 years are going to take a long time to rebuild. And this is kind of to both your points about the transfer portal. We've had some hits. Lloyd's great. Bear Alexander, frankly, is really saving the defense. But we need another year or two or three. I don't know how long of really stockpiling good talent that isn't expected to sort of just show up on campus while missing spring ball and perform like the five, like the all-star, a bunch of 5-6-year seniors like we had last year on the offensive line. So, I'm curious what you guys think about, like, do we need to sort of readjust our expectations? Because we went from, it just needs to be better than Helton in the right direction. And here we are, a year and a half into Lincoln Riley, and we're just like, my God, like, we're not making there's no way we're winning a national championship. This is a failure, like, sort of thing. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it comes down to very simply, Lincoln Riley needs to, and I don't know if you remember, but last summer, before Lincoln Riley's first season, we at Trojans Wire did a series called the Riley Files, 12 different podcast conversations with an Oklahoma-based football analyst who covered the Sooners under Riley. So, we dug deep into Riley's years at Oklahoma. And one of the key things that was pointed out, especially as Oklahoma began to, Oklahoma didn't bottom out or anything. Like, Oklahoma was a steady 10-win program under Riley, but like the level of performance was a little bit worse each year from 2017 through 2021. And the commentator said, like with the changes that happened internally at Oklahoma over the course of Lincoln Riley's 5 years as head coach, he said that Lincoln Riley will get to a point at USC where he has to choose between his friends and winning championships. Because he's loyal to Alex Grinch, he's loyal to Benny Wiley, his strength coach, and this Oklahoma analyst. Like, he was spot on in our Riley Files series. There's going to come a time where he has to cut bait and either fork in the road, friends or championships. Stay with your buddies or be an elite winner, the way Pete Carroll was at USC. He's at that fork in the road right now. Is he going to get the very best defensive coordinator? Is he going to get the very best offensive line coach? Is he going to get the very best strength and conditioning coach? So real talk, in terms of the big picture at USC, in the offseason, Riley needs to clear the deck, and he needs to surround himself with elite staffers. And if he's willing to do that, this thing can rock and roll pretty quickly. But if not, we're just going to have 9-3 seasons in the Holiday Bowl. So it's up to Lincoln Riley to choose where this program is going to go.
Again, but every problem we've had so far, it looks like it's moving two different directions, and it looks like it's all over the place. I now do believe that the defense has been, and Tackett Curtis had a great game last night. All the things, the tackling was poor, very poor. I would absolutely think, though, with still having that issue of the deep middle, I don't understand it. I think that there is a lot of soul searching that this coaching staff does need to have, starting with Lincoln Riley, about what's not working here. It could just be, you guys, we could all be freaking out over the fact that they have some major issues on offensive line. I think that everybody thought because of Clay Helton. Remember, Clay Helton had Clay McGuire, who finally came in and started teaching the proper air raid concepts at the offensive line. And where we had Drevno we had air raid, and we had Drevno, a coach that never coached a line. He had him coaching offensive line. He had no idea what to do. Clay McGuire comes in, puts together this unit, and that unit, you guys, last year was special. That offensive line, that offense, that high-powered offense we saw take it on all those different defenses, that had everything to do with the offensive line that had lots of snaps together over the years. A great leader in Nealon, an absolute beast in Voorhees. And this year, I really think that I was excited about, we're pulling in these guys from the transfer portal. It's one thing bringing in a Jordan Addison at receiver and having him just have him cook. That's what he does. Go get open, Addison. It's another thing bringing in two new guards, switching our guard to center, and then trying to make a patchwork offense with that and saying, hey, we're not going to miss a beat. Well, not only are we not missing a beat, but this offense is really clunking right now. But Russ, we got more people stacking up. Anything else for us?
Yeah, and I just, kind of going off what Avery said about like, what can we do? Like, the reality is, because I agree with you guys, the offensive line is average at best. And we need to be able to play around it. Like, how do we adjust going forward from that? And I'd like to see, you always hear this analogy of like, oh, this is a chess match. Well, it's like, I'd like for Lincoln Riley to be a chess player, like be Magnus Carlsen or Bobby Fischer right now. And, it seems like we got two players that really add some juice to the offense, which is Zachariah Branch and Marshawn Lloyd. And we need to tailor the offense into getting the ball to those guys' hands, not throwing up the bat signal for Zachariah Branch. That he needs to be Commissioner Gordon out there on the front line sort of thing. You know what I mean? And let the defense adjust to those guys burning them. And then we need to have a plan B for when they adjust to Branch and Lloyd. Then we can start, going at their adjustment. So I would like to see that from Riley, because if we just keep things the same, listen, Arizona and Notre Dame, they just gave the blueprint. They're going to rush 4 or 5 every time. They're going to play man coverage. And USC is going to have a hell of a time. So something needs to change in order to win this season. Obviously, there's the broader picture, but we got 6 games left in the season, and Riley needs to be a chess player. That's all
we got you, Russ. We got you. You made a very valid point. I appreciate you always calling in. One quick thing, I'll let Matt go on this really quick, and then we got to move on. I would caution you about thinking that we need to get Riley into being a chess player, etc. I think there's a little bit of reaction going on by a lot of fans. This is not Lincoln Riley didn't just all of a sudden forget how to call the offensive game. Okay, let's put that one to rest right away. I think that there's some pieces that need to get fixed. I'm sorry. It's not like he's a 2-year kid wonder, right? He's been putting up top offenses for years now. So this is not a Lincoln Riley. I'm sorry. I'll be the guy. Come yell at me. I think I don't think that the answer here is, oh, well, Riley just needs to change his play calling, or Riley just need to figure some things out. I don't think it is. I think that he is trying to figure things out, and that there's some pieces here that are severely missing from what they want to do. And that's what he does need to get, though. I mean, the part of what you're saying is he needs to figure it. He's going to figure it out. Will it lead to wins? That remains to be seen. But the thing that I'll put it this way, being in this situation, I'm glad Lincoln Riley is our offensive coordinator compared to 99.9% of the corners out there, because with the offensive line we have, with the schedule that we're playing, let's not forget that this is a very good Notre Dame defense we just played. We didn't play, we didn't play a really bad defense. What alarms me is last week it wasn't a great defense, and they also did the very similar thing, keeping Caleb under 200. That's what just makes me start to think that, man, maybe we really do have some serious issues on the offensive line. Matt, one last word for us?
No, let's move it along. Next caller.
Thanks,
all right, Russ, thank you so much. All right, we got to speed up a little bit. I know. Sorry, Matt. LV, how you doing? Thanks for calling in.
What's going on, guys? Fight on, man. Fight on from the East Coast. How you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for calling.
All right, so I'm going to try to be as open-minded as unlike most people try to be. Sometimes you need a game, right, to wake you up a little bit, right? I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, there was other games. When you're playing on the road against your rival, right, on national television, Caleb did a lot of things that we've never seen him done. It's a wake-up call for everybody, including Riley, including Henson, including Grinch, the whole staff. And so we have to give them that time to really reevaluate things, because I think that's what has to happen. I think they've been dodging bullets all year, and these last 2 weeks really, to me, are eye-opening, because you're seeing a team that's not ready to play, right? These last 2 weeks. The offense just didn't look right last week, and they didn't look right again yesterday. So now that's something that we have to question, right? So if the offensive line is struggling, and to your point, Tim, I'm in total agreement. This whole Lincoln, he knows what he's doing, guys. Everybody calm down. What he probably didn't realize is maybe how bad he thought the offensive line was, right? Maybe he probably said, oh, we're okay. Maybe he said, okay, it's a lot worse than what I think. So maybe he says to himself, okay, this is what we're going to run. This is what we're going to run to protect this, to protect the blitzes and protect that. Maybe he tells Caleb, hey, listen, I'm going to need you to not go for the home runs. Let's do 5 and 7 dumps, curls, slants. Let's work our way down the field. Let's do that, as opposed to putting more time on the offensive line for those plays to develop, because they can't hold up, right, based on what we've seen these last 2 weeks. So to me, I think that's the easy fix. You got to give him time to go back, look at the tape, reevaluate, because something's wrong, guys. I don't want to say it's a culture thing. I don't want to do that, but it's just these last 2 weeks, specifically, the offense has just seemed off. Now, I do agree it is with the offensive line. And then also, too, I think it's with Caleb, right? He just didn't. The offensive line wasn't bad last week, and he was off. And then he's making the same mistakes this week. So I think this is a coming moment for Riley to sit down with Caleb, then watch the tape with Cliff Kingsbury, and say, okay, these are your reads. This is what's happening here. Based on this guy, he's struggling here, this guy's struggling here, we're going to need you to make this throw. So I think that's kind of like what has to happen, and kind of like to get a jump start, because one thing we don't worry about is this guy offensively. He's one of the greatest. A lot of guys would trade for him tomorrow, a lot of coaching staffs. So what say you guys on that?
No, I think it's very simple conceptually. Now, conceptually is different from emotionally, and that's the thing I referenced earlier about Lincoln Riley really needing to realign his priorities. Does he want to be surrounded with a coaching staff that that with guys he likes? Like, is that his desire to be coaching with friends, buddies, and have a collegial atmosphere? Or does he want to be a skull crusher who wins national championships? And so he has his guys he prefers to be with. Those guys aren't cutting it. I mean, so conceptually, I think we all know what needs to happen. Like, Lincoln needs to clean house in terms of his staff. Just go for the best. Like, he needs to embrace guys that he either doesn't necessarily like or like he's not very familiar with. But like, hey, am I here to win national championships? That's what you're getting paid for at USC. He needs to replace Grinch, even though Grinch had very little, if anything, to do with Notre Dame. But still, like, USC's been soft under Grinch generally, so he needs to make a change there. I think changing your strength coach, like Benny Wiley, like one thing Tim talked about in the offseason, like, oh, now it's year 2. Guys are getting more used to the strength and conditioning regimen. Guys are thicker. Guys are bigger. Well, it's not translating on the field, right? Like, this is not a tough team. This is not a physically imposing team. Certainly seems as though strength and conditioning is also where Lincoln Riley needs to make a change. And then I'm not going to say Josh Henson needs to be gone because he did a really good job last year, but I would say these next 5 games, Utah, Washington, Oregon in particular, USC's offensive line needs to have a credible, strong showing against those teams. If not, then we need to get a new offensive line coach. Like, you just can't accept mediocrity at so many different positions on your staff. The player development needs to be far better than what it is. And, just in terms of the larger theme of, the play calling, the tactics, the strategy, USC's personnel just isn't measuring up. Like last year's personnel was better than this year's personnel. What I was not expecting to say that right now after week 7 of the 2023 season, but that's clearly true. Last year's,
and I will say this, you guys,
USC needs more dudes.
And I will say this, we do have more dudes. We got some quality young offensive linemen that I think it might be time. Matt's got that Cheshire look. I'm telling you right now, I believe we do. I've seen these guys film. These guys have good feet. They're maulers. But they're freshmen. I'm not. I definitely thought that you could quick fix with when it comes to defensive line. We've seen it. We brought defensive line guys in, instant impact. Those guys are the strength of this team all of a sudden. Last year was the offensive line, who's been like the strength of the team for a couple of years, along with Caleb. But now you can't just plug it. I mean, I'm seeing it, your right tackle, your right guard, your left guard, you move your right guard to center. That's what we're looking at. This line we have this year is nothing like the line we had last year. I think we're starting to see it. Now, is that Henson? Is it the players? Is it both? Is it a number of things, right? Where do you end? Where do you begin? That's what they get to pay the money for. So I'm with you, Matt. If they don't figure this out, it's not the fans, it's not the players. This is on the coaching staff to figure this out. It's clear as day now, that they've been like oh crap, who are we going to play on this left side? Who are we going to play here? What's going on? The snapping going on with Diedish, I don't want to keep going on with it, but it just the play's breaking down before it even begins sometimes. So they have to tighten that up, fix that line. You're going to fix, just like almost 99% of offenses. You fix that offensive line, everything else is going to run smoothly. Hey, listen, we got a call. LV, if you want to stay on for it, you can. Phone lines are working now, guys. So if you guys want to call the phone lines, they are open now. Hi, this is Tim. You're on with LV, Matt, and Tim. Welcome. And where are you from and what's your name?
My name is Joe. I'm coming out of North Dakota. I'm a Southern California native, and I'm just here to vent. I don't want to call anybody out. I know it seems like almost everybody's, although we're saying certain things, what we haven't been talking about necessarily is the weakness of the air raid offense in general. I believe that the air raid offense, there's just something to be said about lining up under center and having your guys fall forward in blocks. That's when we were best. We seemed to get great running backs then. We didn't have to go all the way to Marshawn Lloyd in South Carolina to run what I consider just me, and I'm out of stater, so I'm not in the mess every day. But what I consider kind of like a high school offense. I mean, it's just pretty much draw left, draw right, and slants, and then hit somebody over the top. And it just doesn't seem like we're getting the kind of recruits that we used to get in Southern California. Something needs to be said about how we're missing modern day players on our rosters, and how they're going to Oregon now, how they're going to Washington, how they're going to other schools. And I think it's because of the air raid offense.
All right, look, let's address that. Let's address that.
Can I jump in on that, Tim, real quick?
Yeah, well, let me. I'll give you 5 seconds, LV. Mine's really short. Watch this. It's been working. This has been one of the greatest offenses in college football for like pushing close to a decade now. So I hear you, but I don't agree with you. Does that make sense? LV, what do you got?
Absolutely. Hey, listen, man, great points, man. I just think that Lincoln Riley's been doing this for years, man. He knows what he's doing. This is not a high school offense. I mean, he's put up numbers in all type of level. The guys are following and trying to do what USC is doing. And Oklahoma were doing. That's Lincoln Riley has taken it to another level. Now, as far as the modern day kids and Don Bosco kids going to Oregon, listen, man, that NIL deal is changing everything. That's a game changer. You have to understand that. So guys now, they have an option of going all over the nation because of the NIL deal. So a lot of guys, when we were able to kind of get the guys from Bosco, to get the guys from modern day with no problem, because everyone wanted to stay home, with NIL and what Oregon is doing, and also too with them moving to the Big Ten, now kids feel like, hey, listen, if I'm not going to start at SC or start in another place, I'm going to go to Oregon. I'm going to get a better NIL deal. I still play in the Big Ten. So now it's not that big of an issue. So I think the modern day and Don Bosco kids, I think that's what's happening there.
Yeah, Matt, what do you think?
I'm just looking at the chat, quite frankly, but also, in terms of Lincoln Riley, like this offense worked last year. Like Caleb Williams won the Heisman Trophy. USC won 11 games with massive roster turnover from the previous year. Just the personnel isn't as good as it was last year. Like, and in terms of the framework of any offense, you can, whether it's Riley's offense, Mike Leach's air raid, you pick your style of offense. If your offensive line is getting its butt kicked, there's no game plan, there's no scheme that's going to work. If you're getting punched in the mouth, if the pocket is getting caved in pretty much every passing situation, no offense is going to work. So this is really about USC being soft. Like that is, if you're going to pick one characteristic, I'm not talking about decisions, I'm not talking about player evaluations, just in terms of a team characteristic, USC is soft. And you can't win at an elite level if you're a soft team. And so that's why strength and conditioning, like other folks aren't really mentioning that. I'm going to keep mentioning that. The strength and conditioning position, Benny Wiley is not cutting it. That needs to change. And let's remember, I'm going to point this out again, about Oklahoma fans being right about what they said about Lincoln Riley. Again, do I like admitting that? Not at all. But there was a guy, Jerry Schmidt. He was in there at the beginning of Lincoln Riley's tenure, and you had Oklahoma with an elite offensive line in 2017. Sooners came within an eyelash of making the national championship game. Like, they had Georgia on the ropes. They were up 17 points. They had the ball in overtime with a chance to win. And, it came really, really close. When Lincoln Riley has a butt-kicking offensive line, his offense is going to put up 50 burgers every game. It's going to be absolutely awesome. But with a soft team and a deficient offensive line, you can try to say that he has to scheme a certain way. He has to call a different kind of game. Hey, he did call a different kind of game against Notre Dame. He was running more on first down. He wasn't just going pass in every first, second, third down sequence. It didn't work. Doesn't mean that Riley was being dumb. It means that Notre Dame kicked USC in the teeth. So USC is soft, and you have to fix that before you fix anything else at USC.
Sorry, I'm writing down the names. I missed your name. Caller, what's your name again? Caller? Joe? All right. Joe, that's a good point. And
yes, sir.
So everyone, Matt brings a point about developing players. here's the thing. Also, I'm not jumping on. I want to be very clear. I'm not jumping on Dedich. You know, he's his first year starting as a center, right? It's probably, I think it's the hardest position. You know, the quarterback's difficult as well. The reads, those guys are doing constant reads. Takes time. I'm not getting on Tarquin. I'm not getting on Mason Murphy. Look, you need time to gel as a unit. It needs to happen. Is it the combination of them? Is it, you know, where's the breakdown? That is on Henson to figure out. I want to take this off of like calling individual kids out. It's on Henson to figure that out and get it going. These kids are busting their asses. This is not an indictment on them. But also remember, you guys, they have guys push them. These are true freshmen. But Elijah Page, Amos Talalele, Micah Banuelos, Elani Noah, Tobias Raymond, those dudes, you remember their names. I'm telling you, if Matt's talking about development, these guys are the pure the players you want, maulers, big guys, typical bodies. They needed to get together. Maybe we're asking them just to this transition from that amazing offensive line we had last year to this year. There's a huge gap, but it shouldn't be this bad. I'm going to flat out say it. It should not be as bad as we're seeing. These players, guys like Tarquin and Mason Murphy, they've shown they can play the position. We need to get these guys coached up and ready starting next week, and I hope they can get that done. Joe, thank you so much for calling in. I hope you call in again.
Just want to duck in one quick point.
Okay. Yes, fight on. But I just wanted to say real quick, the effectiveness and plus the what you were talking about, how effective the air raid offense is. Does Alabama run the air raid offense? Does Georgia run the air raid offense? Clemson ran it effectively, kind of, but really it's not really a winning strategy, in my opinion, regardless of the line. Like I said, there's something to be said about lining up under center and being able to get blocks. That's all. Really, that's what it's about. If you're constantly waiting or in a pass situation, or if the quarterback's doing this kind of holding the ball while, you know, letting the running back, you know, the RPOs are getting out of control. We need to go line up, get under center, fall forward, and knock people off their blocks. Try something different, because I'm telling you, this draw left, draw right, slant, and maybe over the top is not working. I can literally sit at home, watch the game, and go, this is going to be a draw. This is going to be a slant. This is going to be an RPO. If I'm doing that, imagine what the defenses are doing. So fight on. I'm always going to be with USC regardless of where we're at. But it does need to be said that the air raid offense isn't truly effective when you're talking about winning football, not Heisman trophies. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Great job, Joe. Listen, and you got a fan of Avery in the chat. He's saying the same thing, and a lot of people are saying similar things to you. I would just say this. I don't know. It's a really good offense. Imagine this offense coupled with a solid defense, right? So get the offensive line sorted out. Get a consistent defensive line play.
It affects the defense. It does affect the defense when you're constantly doing it and then you're running up to the line and trying to get looks. I know he slowed it down this last game, but that's what happens. You're 3 and out before. And if you're a recruit, you're a defensive recruit, and you're looking at it, you're going, man, do I really want to be on the defensive side where I know my team might go 3 and out in 30 seconds, and then I got to go ahead and fight a long punt the rest of the game? It affects the defensive recruiting too, but
absolutely.
God bless you guys, and you have a nice day.
Yeah, God bless you too, Joe. Thank you so much for calling in. Absolutely great call. Appreciate you calling in. Make sure you call in next week as well. Matt, you have a thought on that?
Go ahead, LV.
One thing, Tim, Matt, you guys made a great point about the O-line, right? Last year, just think about it. You had Brett Nealon, you had Voorhees, and then you also had Dedich, right? Those guys were fifth-year seniors, man. So that plays a role. Those guys were able to build the camaraderie for years, the ups and downs, but build that chemistry. Look what's happening in Michigan. All those guys are fifth-year guys. They won the award last year for the best O-line in the nation, right? A lot of those guys are gone, but a lot of those guys that came back are fifth-year guys. They've been there for years. So I think that plays a major role. You got to develop guys. Guys have to build the chemistry together on the O-line. Those 2 years together, those 3 years together matters, where you're not changing offensive line pieces. You're keeping the same guys in there. So I think that that's really what you're seeing the difference is. You got a lot of plug-in pieces from different places, and guys haven't been able to really get that good rapport with each other to understand strengths and weaknesses, whereas other O-lines who've had seasons of building it, ups and downs together. And I think that that's what you're running into when I'm watching the O-line play. That's totally different from last year. Remember, Nealon and Voorhees were All-Americans last year, guys. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt. LV, hold on a second. So listen, LV, I'm going to cut you loose. Thank you so much. I will catch you soon. As always, just you brought it as always, LV. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast. We'll see you, I'm sure, very soon. Take care, bud.
Thank you.
Matt, your thoughts?
Just in terms of the offensive line, and I think LV makes a really good point that you had chemistry, not just good players, but players who had experience playing together. But of course, in modern college football, you can't expect to have seasons where, most of your guys are, seasoned upperclassmen. That's not always going to be the case. So, Josh Henson has to be able to develop these guys and bring them along. And like Utah, let's talk a little bit about Utah.
Matt, hold on a second. We got another call coming in.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just saying if we could, just give me 1 second. Hi, who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Alex.
Alex
from Florida.
Alex, Florida. Thank you. Can you hold on 1 second? Matt, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Matt, didn't want to interrupt. I just can't put them on hold. That's why I'm trying to do that.
Oh,
Go ahead, Matt.
Just against Utah, physical defensive line. Like this is an immediate challenge right after Notre Dame. And it's a real pride game in terms of these guys got their butts kicked. Are they going to be able to stand up physically to Utah? It's going to be a real measuring stick for not just where these guys are at, but like when challenged. Like this is a game that no one should have a problem getting motivated for. USC's been embarrassed. Utah's a big game. Utah beat USC twice last season. Like if you can't get up for this game and play with a little fire in the gut, what are we doing here? So be really interested to see how this offensive line responds against Utah.
Erica, thank you for the super chat. For those of you who don't want Lincoln Riley, we will take him at Iowa's OC. I kid, kind of. Fight on. Yeah, Erica, I think people, and by the way, so I see you guys. I see the trolls. I see the Oklahoma. You guys can come with criticism, but you guys got to keep it respectful. You are in our house, metaphorically. So we will hear your comments, but try to keep them classy. Try to do that. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to let you go in the chat. But feel free. Criticism today is a good reason. Go ahead, take your little victory lap. I will tell you this. No one told me that the offensive line was going to be the reason why we were losing games. That's all I'm going to say. So sorry, Alex, thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts?
Hey, yeah. So two things. One, I want to know what your thoughts are on, so Lincoln Riley mentioned during the offseason that he was going to be more hands-on when it comes to defense. And I just want to know if you think over the last 2, maybe 3 weeks, he's might have overinvested in defense, might have been going to defensive meetings, scheming up on that side of the ball instead of focusing on the offense. And then maybe that's why the offense just hasn't looked as good. And secondly, I believe Oklahoma has an 80% acceptance rate. So it's not really a great school for any Oklahoma people out there. So I don't know.
Nice shot, but we're talking
trying to come at USC, but
I get you. I'm also a alum fight on, but I mean, at this point, our diplomas aren't helping us win games, but I get you. Matt, what are your thoughts on that? It's an interesting point. Is maybe I'm not sure if I agree, but I'd like to hear what you say, Matt.
Well, you can either say that we have the personnel needed to win, and they're not being developed, or you can say we don't have the personnel needed to win because the transfer portal evaluations, the players that we have just haven't been measuring up so far. So it's one of the two. Either we have the guys, but the coaching staff isn't developing them, or the coaching staff didn't evaluate players enough. So really, if Lincoln Riley was sitting in a little bit more on defensive meetings, that doesn't have too much to do with the fact that the offensive line is getting its butt kicked. It didn't play well against Arizona either. And, that's an important point here, that Arizona was supposed to be the wake-up call. The second half against Colorado was supposed to be the wake-up call. There have been multiple wake-up call style moments, and it hasn't woken up this team. And I go back to the very beginning. This was Notre Dame. This was the first of several really big games this season. This was supposed to be all in, all chips to the middle of the table. This is now when our season begins. This is when USC begins to act like an elite team. Nope, didn't happen. So what are we left to say about that? I mean, it seems to me there's a lot of the guys aren't as good as 2022, as much as it pains me to say that, and the coaches aren't developing players, which has a lot to do with the players not being as good as 2022. So like it's a lot of player development. It's also failures of evaluation in the portal. I mean, it's really both and. I don't want to create the impression that it's either one or the other. It's a lot of both. But Lincoln Riley sitting in on defense a little bit more, like that's not changing the reality that the offensive line has not been especially good the past several weeks. And so USC is soft. The Trojans need to stop being a soft program under Lincoln Riley. That's what matters the most. All right, Tim with another backstage moment here. So like that really gets to this Utah game. Let's briefly talk about the Utah game. Like Utah's brand, Utah's identity is physicality, a lot like Notre Dame. We're going to punch you in the mouth. We're going to be stronger. We're going to wear you down. We are going to be the physically superior team. Like that is the Kyle Whittingham identity at Utah. So like this is a real measuring stick for USC. If USC gets pancaked by Utah and loses to Utah, if Cam Rising doesn't play, and there's a distinct possibility that Cam Rising won't play, he didn't play last week against Cal. If USC loses at home to Bryson Barnes and Utah, like that will tell us just how far this thing has fallen under Lincoln Riley. I see that Will ND is on board, so Tim can bring him on board here.
Yeah, we got to call. Hold on. Will, hang on one sec for me. What? Hi, thank you for calling. Where are you calling from?
Hi, guys. Dave from Iowa.
Dave, how you doing?
Hey, Dave.
I've been better, as most of us have probably. But yeah, before I get into my question or what I want to talk about, I just want to say what LV brought up about Michigan's O-line in terms of, unity, consistency, in terms of like being there for 3 years and Michigan still arguably has the top O-line. They do have an ASU transfer and 2 Stanford transfers. So from that perspective, it truly seems like, the Michigan O-line knows how to develop. But so, it's just like, after today and like I've heard a bunch of calls and it's just, I think as a fan base, we need answers from our head coach. And I know, Tim, you said last week that you don't care too much about these press conferences about what Lincoln Riley has to say. But Oregon lost 3 to Washington yesterday. Dan Lanning put the win on him. Oh, sorry, my bad. Dan Lanning put the loss on him. I was very surprised how Lincoln Riley didn't do that. He just said it was a disappointing loss and, just trust in me, believe in me kind of deal, and we'll get this thing done.
Dave, can I stop? Dave, hold on. Hold on. That's not what he said. That's not the entirety of what he said. He actually said, it was a terrible game. He literally started his whole press conference saying that I know the exact words, but he said he did not say that. He didn't say trust in me, whatever. He says there's a lot of things need to get fixed. He says there's issues all over the place. He started naming off all the different things that were wrong. That's how he started his press conference. Also with Fire Marshal Bill, right? He can sit there all day long and talk about how this and that, and get all mad and what we're supposed to do, but that doesn't give them a W, and it does give them an L, and it doesn't matter. Most of the time, these coaches go in, they do coach speak, and it's just such a bunch of malarkey. Now, if you're a media member and you got to get tangible quotes, I get the frustration. But as a fan, honestly, Dave, does it matter what he says in the press conference? If he goes, oh, it's all on me, it's all my fault, blah, blah, but nothing changes, does it matter? If the guy sits there every week, gets up there and starts complaining about how it's all on him and this, that, or this or that, or I'm going to fix this, I'm going to fix that. It doesn't really matter what he says in a press conference. What matters is what it looks like on the field the next week. That's me. That was that's my point.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand that. So then my question to you is from that standpoint, when Lincoln Riley was introduced at the USC press conference, he said, I want to make USC the mecca of college football, like it was in the past. Or, I may be paraphrasing, but he definitely said mecca of college football. Did that entice you and believe in USC football that's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, you say that, but then when it comes to a loss, he can't double down and just say, yep, the loss is on me, it's my bad. And a lot of fans have been saying this. Nope, it doesn't seem like the team is prepared really. And how come he didn't say, hey, we weren't prepared or whatever the case is, or it's my bad because I didn't prepare the team to what it should be.
All right, you guys thoughts on what? So he says, so I'll give you the exact quote. All right, yeah, incredibly disappointing tonight. Just didn't play good enough tonight to win the game here on the road in the rivalry, blah blah. But then he starts breaking down everything. We're obviously really disappointed. He talks about the issues on the offensive line, the running backs, Kayla's play, his play calling. He literally laid it out. What he did do that I didn't like is he said, well, we only gave up 250 yards. That's because they're on a short field. I would love to see the percentage of yards available that they attained because in the beginning, we weren't holding the field goals. If this defense had been like a Georgia defense and turned the ball over on let's say the 12-yard line and held into a field goal, that'd be one thing. I mean, it's a bit harsh. This is back-to-back weeks where we had turned the ball over on the 12-yard line. They've got touchdowns. And then we gave it to them on the 2-yard line and then on the 50-yard line. I mean, that's putting a lot on the defense. I like what you're saying. You want them to say you want to own up to it, but again, at the end of the day, Dave, what is that really? Is it going to make us feel better? Okay. But what's going to make us feel a lot better is if he fixes these problems.
I would only add this.
I do understand.
Hold on, Dave, hold on. Dave, can you hold on? Can you hear Matt talking?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm generally sympathetic to Tim's point that what matters is on the field. But Dave, I will grant you this. I would just like Lincoln Riley to say very simply, this is unacceptable. This has to change. And sometimes when a leader just says this is bad, and this is not going to be tolerated. If a player hears that, maybe that creates the inner motivation and urgency for a player to be better. But what ultimately matters is the product we see on Saturday. So in that regard, I'm with Tim. But I think Lincoln Riley could just simply say, this is awful. And when players see that kind of statement, maybe that hits them in a way that, talking to the media, you can say things in the media that indirectly refer to their players, and players obviously notice what a coach is saying. Lincoln Riley needs to use this as a way to somehow reach his players. He's not reaching them. So to that extent, I agree with Dave.
Right. Dave, are you able to hear Matt or no?
Sorry, I wasn't.
Okay. All right. This great point. Changes need to be made, but they can't be made in the middle of the year. They're not going to be. I think that this administration is not investing $100 million into Riley to have this kind of performance on the field. I think there's going to be pressure to make some changes. I think that there are some changes that need to be somewhere. There's something, there's something here that's not working. It does need to be fixed. Any other thoughts, Dave?
Nope, that's it. But
I hear.
Thanks for letting me talk. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'll let the other fans call in and listen back to what Matt said.
Yeah, sorry. So you're having audio issues of hearing Matt. Is that correct? When Matt's talking, you can't hear him?
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you letting me know that. All right, thank you so much for calling in, Dave. You're making valid points. I think what Matt said and what you say, hey, just own up to it. Just come flat out say you want to hear a Dan Lannon, hey, this is on me kind of thing. Again, I get it, but one, I don't think it really does much. But also at the same time, it's what actions speak louder than words. That's what I want to see. But appreciate your call as always, Dave. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
You too. Matt, are you able to hear Dave when he was talking?
Yeah.
Hey, Will, how you doing, Will?
I'm doing good. I'm in the airport, so I hope everything's not too loud. But I'm very, very happy Victory Sunday for me.
Congratulations, Will. Much deserved.
All right, I'll say this. Can we give a little more credit to Al Golden? I'm not saying he's Barry Alvarez or Bill Armsbarger, but he did a really good game plan, and I hold Lincoln Riley in very high esteem for offensive coaching. And to me, it kind of looks like he ran circles around him. I don't know. Are you guys pretty impressed in Golden, or? Because a
He
lot
had
of
his
people
guys
were
ready to play, unlike USC's staff.
Mhm. Yeah.
And from the Notre Dame side, and I was reading Fighting Irish Wire all week leading up to the game, and one thing that Fighting Irish Wire writers and editors were saying was Notre Dame had played 7 straight weeks leading up to this game, and the Duke game was very physical, the Ohio State game was very physical. This team was exhausted, running on fumes. Well, so Al Golden and Marcus Freeman got their guys to man up, bring it all together. USC had an off week in mid-September. USC should have been physically fresher than Notre Dame was, but the Notre Dame staff, very much including Al Golden, had their guys physically, mentally ready to play. That's a great credit to them.
Yeah, sorry,
I was really impressed with what Al Golden brought. I mean, clearly, so USC has some deficiencies, but he absolutely took advantage of them. Golden just did a brilliant job. We talked to you last night about your corners just absolutely playing out. And just that's been kind of a kryptonite for this offense. Is just locked. I mean, any offense is you get lockdown corners that can do that. Allows you to do a lot of stuff up front, right, or even on the back end. But being able to put those guys on islands and know that they're going to take care of receivers. Kind of lends to what Matt was saying about the inability of we don't have that Jordan Addison that's going to get that separation. I think you need an elite guy like that to get away from elite corners like you guys have at Notre Dame, which again makes the defensive coordinator job much easier when you can just kind of sit there and be able to rely on those guys to shut down one side of the field, or quite frankly, just take that zone and just cover that whole area, because those guys are amazing.
I'll say this about USC. I don't know. I think it's very high risk to get offensive line guys from the portal, just because so many offensive lines are so different about how they do and everything. So are you guys hopeful that next season USC's offensive line could get developed? The guys you've been recruiting, are you confident in their development and that they'll be able to take that step next season?
So I said earlier in the show when you weren't on, Will, so I'll say it for your benefit, that Utah, Washington, Oregon coming up in the next month. How the USC offensive line performs in these games should have a lot to do with whether Josh Henson gets retained as offensive line coach, because Riley had Bill Biedenbaugh at Oklahoma, and Biedenbaugh did set the bar pretty high. If Josh Henson can't match that standard or come appreciably close to the Bill Biedenbaugh standard, he's got to go. So this next month, in my mind, it's very much Josh Henson's job interview, or if you want to stay on for 2024, you got to create some real improvement with these guys.
Yeah, and I do. And so also, Will, we have our freshman class of offensive linemen is, in my opinion, going to be amazing. Starting with Elijah Page. I mean, even Talalele looks really good. Banuelos guy's just a mauler. I do believe that these guys, but again, it's how rare is it, Will, that you have, it happens. You can get a true freshman out there. But I don't think even an issue of these players. I just think that it looks like they're just not picking up some things because the protections. Now, how do we know if the protections are on them or on who's calling out the protections? There could be a lot of stuff going on. So I don't know. I really don't know where it begins. I'm not that. I wish we had Gabe Green's a Trojan Blade on here. He's the offensive lineman. He knows. I mean, he would be perfect for this. And tell us, I guarantee. So you guys, by the way, check out Trojan Blade this week if you're not, because I'm telling you, I guarantee he addresses the offensive line without a doubt. Matter of fact, I'm probably gonna call him after this and talk to him. You need to realize that this is starting up front. It always is. It is. That's where football's won, in the trenches. And it looks bad up front for offense, and that makes the whole thing clunk from there. So, yeah.
I have a question about Alex Grinch. I'm gonna get to Jared Parker in a minute, but do you think that the USC defense is starting to trend upward under Alex Grinch? Do you think he's actually doing a good job, or is it just the Notre Dame offense just wasn't very impressive?
Well, Notre Dame had very short fields, such that it wasn't a game in which Notre Dame had to drive 70, 75, 80 yards to score touchdowns. And so this defense, and Notre Dame also got a kick return for a touchdown. So, like, we didn't expect this game. Nobody expected this game to play out specifically the way it did, with Caleb Williams throwing 3 first-half interceptions and, Notre Dame getting some easy scores. And Alex Grinch and the defense were basically peripheral to the outcome. Like, Alex Grinch and the defense, they were just kind of off to the side in terms of what decided this game. So you can't really draw a firm conclusion. Utah, Washington, Oregon coming up that we should see, especially against Washington and Oregon. Utah might not have Cam Rising, so how USC plays against Washington and Oregon, that's gonna tell us really where this defense is under Alex Grinch, and it doesn't look very good right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So,
but really quickly, we got calls stacking up. I love you calling, but did you have one last thing for us?
I have one last thing. One last thing. Okay. So Jared, I caught the beginning of the show. I'm not liking what I've been seeing from Jared Parker, and I think it's similar to kind of with Lincoln Riley. Like, Jared Parker was Marcus's interim coach at Purdue when Marcus Freeman was at Purdue before he was at Cincinnati. So they're good buddies. I just want Marcus to make the right decision for the football program, not for his friendship with him and Jared Parker. So if it doesn't improve,
I got to ask you, would you take back Tommy Rees if Saban lets him go?
That's just mean. Matt.
I would take him back for this season, but then let him go if I had to say it. Like, I don't want him being the offensive coordinator next season at Notre Dame. I don't want Jared Parker being the offensive coordinator next season at Notre Dame. I want Arbuckle from Washington State or someone of that quality to lead the Notre Dame offense.
Cliff Kingsbury.
No, Matt. No. But okay, like, I really got to see something out of this offense in the Clemson game. Going to Death Valley, that's not going to be an easy game. Clemson still has a talent. They're still a good team. They kind of threw away both of their losses. I mean, they still have the players on that team to be a top 10 program. So if I don't see something out of that offense in that game, I think that Jared Parker has to go for sure. But hopefully the bye week, Notre Dame can use this bye week to get the offense back up and rolling like it looked in Raleigh, like it looked against the 3 non-Power 5 teams that we played before. I'm really hoping to see improvement, but I don't know if I'm holding my breath.
All right, well, I'm going to go over in a second here. We got a caller just been waiting patiently. Okay. I'll catch you later. Thank you so much for calling and appreciate you as always, Will.
Thanks for having me on, Tim.
Thanks, Will. Tim, I started the show solo. Now I'm going to let you finish the show solo because I have to.
No problem. Well, then, Will, if you want to hang out, you can hang out You can hang out if you want to.
I'll hang out. My flight doesn't leave till 5:15. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Matt. All right. So, caller, sorry to keep you waiting so long. Hi, where are you from? What's your name?
Hey, my name is Hector. I'm calling from Austin, Texas.
Hi, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hector?
Hey, so just want to quickly touch base and see if you guys, I don't know if you've been asked, just kind of the lack of intensity coming from Lincoln and how that correlates to the team, not being able to put teams away when we have a big lead, or just a couple of things that have bothered me during his press conferences, not being into sending a message, can't identify what the identity of the team is. And then just secondly, if the season takes a turn for the worst, the impact on recruiting, how that's going to affect us, especially going into the Big Ten. Just a couple points out there that see if you guys can touch on that.
Well, again, I went to the St. John Bosco Mater Dei game on Friday, and I'm standing there with my friend, everyone know John Jackson, right? And we're watching the game, and of course, Sarkisian and Kiffin are both there, and they walk over to talk to JJ. I'm just like a rock on the ground, but and they're talking about all the different players that they're there for. You have Sarkisian and Kiffin there on their day off in Southern California, watching a game with about well over a dozen top recruits on the field, and USC is going to get one of them. I mean, Marcellus Williams is an absolute stud. I'm gonna love him at corner, but here's the thing: only one of them. Notre Dame's getting Kingston Viliamuasa. Dude's an absolute beast. I can go down the line on both. I mean, I'm not going to do it. They got Oregon just yesterday got Breland from Modern Day. Yeah, I'm no longer. I'm not going to lie. Before I was like, oh, don't worry, we'll figure it out. We'll replace in the portal. But no, I think that we had an opportunity last year to build on what we had last year and really take off in recruiting. But the way we played this year, the players, the families, the coaches, the high school coaches, they're looking at it and they're saying, I can't. I'm so sorry. I can't remember who it was. It was LV or Joe? I think it was Joe, maybe, that brought up the point that these kids are watching the defenses and saying, or the offense is going, 3 and out. The defense claim, do I really want to go out there and be put in that position? It's getting worrisome. It really is getting worrisome. But to you, Will, really quickly. So here are the drives. Ready? Touchdown, punt. This is for Notre Dame. Touchdown, punt, field goal, punt, touchdown, punt, touchdown, punt. Right, and then the field goal we went for. I wouldn't have gone for it. Yeah. That was in regulation time. The first 3 touchdowns were for 12 yards, 2 yards, and 50 yards. When they were on a long field, they went 3 and out, 4 yards, 3 and out, 3 yards, 3 and out, 6 yards. That's what the defense was doing. And we didn't see that. A lot of people missed that. The defense played really well. Now, is that your Gerard Parker issue? Right, Will? That very well could be part of it. Is it they're not very explosive? That's part of it as well. But USC was getting 3 and outs. Unfortunately, our offense was handing Notre Dame points.
Tim, I think something that could really help is that I'm assuming they're all going to come over. All the recruits are going to be, or people that are guys that are looking at USC are going to be at that Washington game. If your defense puts on a show, is able to handle Michael Penix, and your offense gets back on track, that could be huge for defensive recruiting for SC. That could save your class for sure, being able to put on a show for your recruits at the Coliseum.
They're going to have plenty of opportunities. I mean, we lost this one. I don't know how they're going to fix it, but they have the opportunity. Will they seize that opportunity? Because this was an opportunity to maybe to have Viliamu take a look at what do I want to do here? Maybe not.
After the game, Kingston had a picture with Audric Estime, and it really made me happy seeing those 2 guys together.
I mean,
they posted on social media.
Again, this was the exact opposite of what I wanted to happen. So yeah, I mean, this just cements his decision. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the recruiting thing. Anything else you got for us?
No, that was really it. I mean, I just wanted to kind of get that off. I appreciate you guys taking my call.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, I missed your name. I'm writing these names down. Sorry, what was your name again, sir?
Hector.
Hector, thank you. Hector from Texas, right? Thank you, Hector. Really appreciate you calling in.
You got it.
All right.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for the show.
Thanks for calling. Appreciate you too. All right. So, yeah, you're going to start seeing that and you see this recruiting class it started out really good. Then we had a decommit. We had Fegan's brother. He decommitted again, possibly because his brother's not playing. I don't know what the reasoning behind that was. But USC's class is looking pretty anemic. You don't win recruiting battles in December, but in October. But in December, we're pretty sad if this offensive line continues to play like this. I do like what the defense is doing. However, I think we'll be the first one to tell you they've been struggling on offense. So yes, they did play the 3 and outs, and they're holding the punts. The points that Notre Dame got. Notre Dame had that one nice drive, but really it wasn't even a drive. 6 plays, 68 yards. But the reason for that was it gave like a 50-yard post pattern over the middle. They beat the corner. The safety was sucked up, and it was wide open for them to score that touchdown. So, Will, any last kind of thoughts wrapping this thing up? Oh, but one comment for all the Sooner fans out there. I hear a lot of people told you so and this, that, blah, blah. Lincoln Riley last year maybe did himself a disservice by turning around a 4-8 team into what they did last year in 1 year. And now they're on year 2, and they clearly have issues in personnel again. I think that we're starting to see that the defense is shoring up, but maybe we expected too much too quickly. Maybe we were celebrating how quickly he turned it around because there's still obviously some problems. All right, we get one more call in. Hold on a second. Thank you, caller. What's your name? Where are you from?
Hey, what's up? This is Go Blue.
Go Blue. How you doing, man?
Go Blue. What's up?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, man, who didn't see this coming? You know what I'm saying?
It's one game, Go Blue. Take your quick victory lap and.
Hey, man, look. Hey, man, but bottom line, man, I'm not too surprised. I am surprised by the offense. I'll say that. I am surprised by that. I think the defense kind of did what I thought they would do. I thought they played well, but it's just tough to hold up against anybody when you're giving them great field position. Who you guys got next?
Well, I'll say, hold on. There's great field position, and there's giving them the ball at the 2-yard line and the 12-yard line. That's not good field position. That's handing them touchdowns. Next week, we have Utah. Do you have a point? Just really quickly, you want to cover? Because we're about to wrap up.
I mean, the one point I do got is I don't take too much from people. I know people be saying like, "Oh, USC's defense, like they played well." I mean, it's Notre Dame. I think USC's defense is gonna come back down to what they've been lately. Once they play the Washingtons, the Oregons, I think they might do decent against Utah. We'll see. But I think this might be a 4 or 5 loss season for you guys.
4 or 5 loss season. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support of the show. Have a great Sunday. 4 and 5 loss. I got to let you go. All right. Will, any last thoughts?
I mean, I'm sure Trojans have time to bounce back, but they're going to be playing tough teams. But Lincoln Riley he just needs to get that offensive line to play better, and the Trojans will definitely have a chance of at least making the Pac-12 title game or winning it. I mean, he has to get it together, or like it could be Alamo or Holiday Bowl, which would be disappointing with Caleb. But definitely, if they get some more recruits, the Trojans can and have another good transfer portal class. You could definitely see SC bouncing back next season. But change has got to happen for the Trojans to be where they want to be at the end of this season.
Yeah, for sure. We got one more call coming in, Will, I think. Hang on one second. Hi, thanks for calling. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, Matt from Phoenix, Arizona.
Matt, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
What's up, Matt?
What's up, man? Hey, so, I mean, fight on, USC diehard fan. Bad game last night. It happens. But I just keep thinking to Jim Harbaugh and Kirby Smart and how much time they had. I mean, I'm looking at Harbaugh's record at Michigan to start in 2015, 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4. Like, I mean, we're all LA fans. We want championships right away. But how much time do you think this is actually going to take? You know what I mean? And how much time are we willing to give? I thought you made a great point earlier that Lincoln might have done himself kind of a disservice last season by turning it around so fast. You know, I mean, it's just, that's the only thing I can think of right now.
No, I mean, it's a good point. And again, we're riddled, and I knew it was going to happen. And again, I appreciate all the Sooner fans. The vast majority of you guys are making some really good points. Some of you guys are acting like 8-year-olds, but again, everyone has their idiots. They escape the village once in a while. But there are some serious problems. There are some absolute serious problems with Lincoln on defense historically. No one's denying that. You know what I mean? I'm wondering though, are we just going to, it's such a knee-jerk. This was a rebuild. And you're an SC fan. We know what this defense looked like 2 years ago. It's night and day better now than it was 2 years ago. And I do believe it's still going to continue to improve. It is a work in progress. The worrying thing for me is this year, it looks like we do have an issue on some issues on the right side of the line. And Nealon's struggling a little bit. I mean, Dietrich is struggling a little bit in the middle.
How much of that do you think is like O-line continuity? Just because these guys haven't played together for a long time. I mean, like at a certain point, does the transfer portal hurt you because you're bringing in a guy like the kid from Wyoming, and this is the first time he's ever played with these dudes, right? And so like there is something to be said of an O-line that's played, 20 games together or even 5 games together. So I know we're 6 games in, but I mean there is chemistry and building that teamwork and in communication. So I just think look, I want USC to win a championship more than anything. That'd be awesome, but it might be that we need more time. And I just keep looking. I go to Kirby Smart and I see his record, and it's like it's the same thing. These guys start out 10-3, Kirby Smart was 8-5, 13-2, 11-3. So I mean, it's not like it's a quick turn. Now they didn't have the transfer portal back then, but I mean, still, that's my only concern.
Well, no,
question and or hope too.
But remember, you're talking about Georgia, And Rick had that thing stacked. I mean, it's not like he didn't have talent. When Riley came in here to SC, there was talent.
They had no one.
We know that. Well, we had some piece. There's some quality players that were on the roster. It's just there were massive holes, though, right? You talk about.
I agree.
You know, Urban Meyer. I want to talk about Urban Meyer's his career record. He walked into Florida, and Ron Zook had the place. You know, Zook couldn't coach, but he was a hell of a recruiter, and he had the players were there. He walks into Ohio State, and they've been building, you know, for years. So I mean, it depends on when you're a coach and what you walk into. Saban had trouble his first year, and he started turning it around. Right?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's been recruiting great for years. I mean, you go back to Cristobal, you go back to Helfrich. They've been playing. So Dan Lanning walks into something great. USC was at the bottom of the bottom, right? So I mean, it's obviously with Caleb and bringing everyone over, they've been awesome and played out of their minds. But at a certain point, when you play with fire, you're just going to get burned. And you are right. There are obvious holes, and let's hope that they can fill them through either recruiting. But I just think that maybe there's a continuity issue, and it's just a matter of time, right? Like giving them time. And I mean, again, I just think Jim Harbaugh, you look at this is his best team. It's his 8th year at Michigan, and we tend to forget that. So it's like, I think if you give Lincoln time, he's going to build a monster. And even Nick Saban said it this year. His biggest concern is what USC is doing.
Wait,
That's the best coach of all time.
Wait, for our Wolverine fans in the crowd, wait, are you saying it took him 7 years to beat his arch rival?
Dude, yeah, it did. I mean, shocking. So, go figure that this is his best team ever, and it's his 8th year coaching there.
He didn't turn it around and get the playoffs, and he didn't get to the playoffs in year 2. Oh, that's
dude.
He must suck. They got to fire him.
I mean, he was 8-4, and he had to take a discount just to stay. They're so it's like
they were going to run. Yeah,
the team's going to be great.
I'm going to say that. Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it, Will.
The reason that Michigan, I think, did well. I don't like Michigan.
There,
I don't. But I think that Harbaugh took a pay cut to get like some good assistants on the staff. Like Lincoln's just got to have the right guys around him to be able to succeed. It's hard just to win with like if the O-line doesn't improve, like you just got to, and the defense doesn't improve. For the USC to be like a national championship team, they got to just make you just got to cut bait with the guys. Like I definitely think they can make the playoff with the guys that they have now if they bring in the right recruits in, but it's just that coaching's got to be there with Georgia's staff and with Michigan's. It's just really important to get the right coaches there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we need to stop here and we got to clean a couple of things up. We've been hearing that for 6 weeks now. To your point about the continuity in the offensive line, I do know that that Prangley was injured, I believe, for a good portion at the beginning of the year. They both came in, like you said, from the transfer. Actually, and Tarquin. So, all three. We have Kingston and Tarquin and Prangley all coming in from the portal. That does, in offensive line, they do work as a unit. It's one of the most important units. It does take that unity to gel together. But at some point, I got to say, we can't say that's why they played as poorly as they did last night, right? I mean, at some point, we have to say there's something deeper there. It needs to get fixed.
Mean, also at some point, how often does, just wear and tear on Caleb from having to play Superman every single game? I mean, dude, if I go on a long streak at my personal job where I'm busting that butt and I'm taking overtime and all that, I'm going to get burnt out. Same thing's going to happen. The kid's going to get burnt out. And so, and look, I mean, these are all excuses for what the real fact is. We just got outplayed, outcoached, outphysicaled. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And it's going to happen to every team. That happened to Notre Dame last week. It happened to Oregon at Texas Tech. They should have lost that game. So it's college football. It goes week to week. These kids are 20, but I mean, there's certain things you have to look at and go, okay, this has been building. But you are right. Lincoln's just got to take responsibility, look his team in the face, and say, hey, it's time to step up. And if we're not, this is going to be a long rest of the year. So what do you guys want to do? And I think the defense actually stepped up, heard all the criticism, and said, screw it, we're going to go out there and play. Because you were right. Tackett Curtis looked awesome for the first time last night. I mean, it was cool to watch. So, I mean, there's hope. It seems dim right now, but I think a bounce back against Utah would be great. And, to stay on this trajectory, I think SC is going to be national champions here very, very shortly. Maybe not this year, but in the next couple of years, if time tells us it's going to be around year 4, year 5, and we're going to be winning championships year in and year out.
Well, I had the pleasure of having the McKay family. I had J.K. McKay and Jeff McKay on Thursday. And again, they were going to run out arguably our best coach of all time after year 2 because they're coming off of sanctions. We were self-sanctioning. Let's face it. First we got sanctioned, then we were self-sanctioning with some of the decisions that we were making, as a program, and they didn't. And what do you know? Then he wins a national championship, and they ends up winning 4 national championships. So fans themselves tend to be a bit. Can you turn your? I think you got the audio in the background coming back in.
Yep.
That's right. So I like you started this conversation with, like I said earlier, I think maybe he did himself a disservice by just out of the gate making such a huge improvement. Everyone expected they're going to take that next step up. When unfortunately, because of the offensive line and because of the defense having some issues, especially on those explosives, I keep saying that they've kind of regressed this year, and they definitely aren't as good this year as they were. And we all know when you go from one year and you look like you're doing a little bit worse the next year, which is funny because overall I think they're playing better, but the results are worse. What's that about, right? I think that there's improvement on defense, but they got to fix the offensive line now.
I agree. And 2 points, again, I just think, one, Jason Voorhees was a 5th-year guy. They had dudes all over the place that had played together for a long time. You got one of the top, if not the top, offensive line coach in there. They got to work with dudes that knew each other, that had battled together, that had been through a lot. I think the team last year caught fire, believed, and it was really fun to watch. That's one of my favorite SC teams ever. And unfortunately, the defense fell apart, but it was fun to watch because you could tell that they believed. And I think that just having the transfer portal might be really good for positional players, but offensive line is all about continuity. And then, last point is I even pulled up Pete Carroll's record, right? You want to talk about best coaches of all time? First year, 6-6, 11-2, 12-1, 13-0. So it can be turned around quick, but I bet you after 6-6, and I mean, at that point I was pretty young, but I know that there were some USC fans calling for him to get fired since he was the 4th option anyway. So I think that if we give it time and SC comes out, plays well in these last few games, Lincoln's going to turn it around. And also with like recruiting, I mean, it is what it is, dude. If you look at any recruiting class nowadays, I can't even take it serious because half those kids that go to Oregon or Alabama or SC, they could all transfer out the next year because they didn't play, right? So I think it's really important, and we got to look at it and we have to value it. But at the same time, like with the way that this Wild West transfer portal is working, you can't just be so attached to all these high school kids when at any time they could all transfer out.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, call. Thank you so much for calling in. You make some great points. I think that this is going to be a little bit longer than we thought it was going to be. And again, I'm having a good laugh reading some of the comments from the Oklahoma fans, thinking that there's some victory lap because USC probably, just so you know, everybody, USC is now fallen to 17-2 in 17-2 in the regular season. Okay, where basically they've lost 1 conference game under Lincoln Riley. Let's just slow it down a little bit. Nothing in life is ever as good or as bad as it seems. Lincoln Riley is an elite coach. I know that there's people that are going to detract it and be very knee-jerk about this, but Lincoln Riley is still the same coach he was when he started this. And I'll say this to you. If they decide to go in a different direction on defense, right? If they sort out the offensive line, it is not Lincoln Riley. And you Oklahoma guys can make it seem like you're so happy right now. You guys are happy now. Wait till you guys get exposed. I do like your guys' defense, but your offense is nothing special. So keep that in mind as well. Thanks again for the call.
Agree, man. Fight on, bro.
Fight on, man.
Yep,
Have a great Sunday.
All right. Well, I think I'm getting a bit overdone. I'm being way too patient with Oklahoma fans in the chat as well. I had to nuke a couple of them. Look, you guys, remember, I welcome you all to be here. But if you start coming at our fans in the chat, you're gone. You can give me a little bit of flack. I don't mind. I kind of ignore most of it. But you guys got to be civil to each other in the chat. Period. That's the way it is. You guys are guests here and you're welcome here, but act like a guest.
Just treat people like you
Tim
want to be
is getting
treated.
heated. I mean, that's the kind of childish stuff that we're talking about, man. Nobody's getting heated. We're trying to ask you to act like adults. All right. Well, any final thoughts? We're going to get out of here.
Yeah, just it'll be interesting to see if USC bounces back against Utah next week. Should be a great game. Should be a great game. Excited to watch it. Happy for a bye week. I need a bit of a break. Just to break and rest up, and I'm sure the players do too. So yeah, thanks for having me on, Tim, and go Irish.
Yeah. Will, thank you as always for being here. Great game last night. And I'm making lots of, it sounds like excuses for USC, but you guys really took it to us. You should be proud of your Irish. Good bounce back game. And wish you guys luck the best of the year. Fight on, man.
All right.
All right. Well, you guys, that'll pretty much do it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Avery, Russ, LV, Joe, Alex, Hector. Let's see. Who else do we have? We have Go Blue. And I'm sorry, caller from Arizona. I just missed your call. If I missed anybody else as well, I do apologize. Thank you all so much for being here. Look, there's clearly some things that have to get sorted out for USC, and I'm just going to run them down just really quickly, right? It's all starting with protecting the ball. You have to take care of the ball. Into the game on Thursday, I said, look, USC, the key of the game is whoever wins the turnover battle. Well, USC lost the turnover battle 5-0. You're not going to win many games giving them the ball on the 2-yard line, the 12-yard line. That's back-to-back weeks where the offense is giving the ball up on the 12-yard line or less. Hats off to Notre Dame. Benjamin Morrison and Xavier Watts played out of their absolute minds. You got a lot of great things going forward with them and Hall as well. Make sure you guys that you are subscribing. One last thing, Trojans out there, if you could go ahead, and even some of you Oklahoma fans, you want to come in here and run it, go ahead. I don't care. But make sure you're subscribing and hitting that notification bell, because that way you'll know when we go live. We've been pretty much going Sundays and Thursdays, these call-in shows. But as the season goes on, we're going to be popping up live if there's any news that breaks as far as recruiting or anything major, any kind of coaching changes, right? Those may be on the horizon. Make sure that you are subscribing to us, because we do want to have you guys. We do appreciate everybody that called in. USC fans out there, I know you hung out and listened to a lot of this stuff. Remember this. It's not like in year 2, we're going to pull the plug on Lincoln Riley. It's some of the absurd comments that we're hearing. I have to assume there are a lot of Oklahoma fans. This team has done a lot of great things. There are pieces, and no one wants to hear it, but this team is close. They have things they got to fix. That offensive line does need to get fixed. But the defense, again, like I told you, unless we were handing the ball over on turnovers, they were forcing punts. They were forcing 3-and-outs. It's just the offense didn't take care of the ball in this game, losing that turnover battle 5-0. You're not going to win any games losing a turnover battle 5-0, especially when you're giving it up on your side of the field. So for Matt, appreciate Matt as always taking his time from Trojans Wire. Make sure, if you want to hear about what's going on and questions that Matt has about this defense and the offense, that you check it out, Trojans Wire. Every day, cranking out information on Trojan team. I mean, it's the first place I go to get my information before I go on to anywhere else, because Matt does a great job of breaking down what he sees and what's missing. And he's got a great staff over there. Also, please make sure that you keep this in mind. The whole season is still out there for the Trojans. It would truly be a miracle the way I saw that offense play last night. But if they could, they still have everything out in front of them. And the key thing is getting that Utah game. It's a home game, you guys. I believe it's sold out. It should be a great game, and it'll be step 1. USC right now they're undefeated. They truly hold their own destiny. They got some massive games coming up at Autzen, at home against Washington. At this point, the way we played, I don't see victories in either one of those games, but I'm holding out hope they figure it out. I do have faith in this team. I think we have great players. I think people are questioning the culture. I'm not questioning the culture at all. And I think these coaches, the coaching staff that we have, I think they will get it figured out. So until Monday, you guys, make sure you check us out on Monday. We do have the Monday show. This should be pretty live. We're going to have Matt and Mark with me on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, talking about the game against the Utes on Saturday as well. And then, as always, we'll have Thursday. We'll have our preview show, call-in show again. Then we got the phone line all sorted out. Appreciate you guys being patient about that as well. So until then, you guys fight on. And remember, USC still is 17-2 in the regular season. They hold their own destiny. They just got to win out. I'm hoping we figure out the offensive line. Until then, you guys, we'll see you on Monday. Fight on and have a great Sunday.